prayer, okay? And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so again, good evening to everybody joining us here and on the live stream. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And so the very first thing that we have is some Cobra Pride Award um, for Christian O'Neill. Okay, Miss Gray.
As most of y'all know, that the middle school has been raising money for Cobra, Cannon, McMullen, and I'm proud of all the middle school students, to say the least, but I wanted to recognize 3 for doing an outstanding job. Christian O'Neill, I wanted to nominate for Cobra Pride, for a caring Cobra. He took his own time on Saturday and Sunday, went downtown and collected donations, then he played his guitar. So I am awarding you the Cobra Pride Award. And also in here are pictures, so you can hold up. Congratulations. You can stand over there, some are going to take pictures. Also want to congratulate 2 other students because they were there the whole time, both Saturday and Sunday, backing up Kristen and supporting the other former Cobra, and that is Seth Cole. Just stand by, Kristen. And Andrew Jackson.
Ms. Gray, I want to thank you for recommending these students. I want to thank the students first and foremost for their thoughts and sincerity, and everyone involved. If you guys will stay up here, we'll let your parents get a picture, and then we're going to step over Ms. Herring, board president, and myself, and we'll get another picture. So thank you very much, and glad you guys could make it here at our board meeting tonight.
One more thing real quick, I would like to add that in the paper, apparently it was wrong because Cannon's mom is doing help me out.
Cannon started the fundraiser to help
Children.
other children with the same kind of cancer he has be able to go to New York for research.
So the money,
All of the money
yeah.
goes towards helping others with research, and so we're trying to help Cannon all we can with his cause.
All right. 1, 2, 3. And get one more. Very good.
Okay. So we will move on to our consent agenda items. All of the board members have had a chance to review those items. And so we're going to go ahead and consider those approved by unanimous consent. Moving on to our superintendent update. So Dr. Murphy, I'll turn it over to you.
Based on the agenda linked here this evening, provided you financial summary, and we've got a couple of important items. Is there any specific questions for you do you have for me this evening on either of those items? Okay, I'll defer then to Mr. Campbell.
All right, I apologize that I do not have the link live in there for the early release agenda for October. I can tell you that our buildings have been working in their early release time, primarily on working toward face-to-face instruction and blended instruction and virtual instruction all simultaneously. And we've kind of laid that time aside for them to work toward those things. Additionally, I know the middle schools reviewed test scores with their first round of NWEA and worked on setting up their enrichment groups. And so that's what's been going on during that time. Also have down here is item B. We have kicked around, talked with our PPC, talked with our guiding coalition, and we are going to kick off our virtual Fridays a week from this Friday on into our report to the public. There is a link to our Ready to Learn plan, and it is in our Ready to Learn plan how each of the buildings plans to go about Virtual Friday. Elementary will look very similar to it looks every other day. The middle school will have a variation to its normal schedule. At the high school, we expect that most of those students probably will work virtually from some site other than high school. Probably from home they'll work, and that will give teachers the opportunity to focus on those students who are here that day and potentially get some virtual students to come up onto campus on that day for some face-to-face instruction with their teachers. We expect that most of the elementary and middle school students will be here, and so they will experience a very pretty similar day to what their everyday experience is now. So wanted to share those two pieces with you tonight.
Does anybody have any questions on those? No?
No, if you have questions regarding the virtual Fridays, we need to address those at this point. When we move to the building reports, that will be for the annual performance report, and so it would not be addressed at that point. So any questions that you would have associated with the virtual Friday, this is the point in time to discuss that, yes, right now.
Okay, because I just had a question or two. You said the elementary will look virtually, very similar to what they do now. So how are we, I know this was kind of designed to give teachers an extra opportunity to
Yes,
catch
ma'am.
up. How will the elementary?
Well, elementary have specific virtual teachers at this time who aren't doing both virtual and face-to-face. And
Okay.
so that's why elementary will look very similar. In fact, on those virtual Fridays, the virtual teachers are listed in the plan as pulling small groups to try to give some more focused instruction to the face-to-face students, and potentially have virtual students come onto campus because there are fewer numbers of students on campus that day. The middle school has been able to come up with some additional time for their teachers during the week. They're not able to sustain that same level of virtual time going into this next 9 weeks. So this will give those teachers who are doing both virtual and face-to-face simultaneously some additional time on that virtual Friday to do some of the work that we're asking them to do in 2 different ways at one time. The high school we've not provided anything to up until this point. Those teachers are doing 2 jobs at the same time. Every one of them have virtual and face-to-face students every period of the day, and we've done nothing for the high school. And so this will give those high school teachers the time and the opportunity to address the needs of all of their students, the ones who are here for the face-to-face, excuse me, and the virtual students who are at home, and maybe they can get to come up here if the numbers are smaller. 33% of the high school population is still virtual at this time. 50% of the senior class is virtual at this time. So 1 out of 2 seniors is not here.
And so this may be a good place to ask this question also, but since we're at the end of a 9 weeks, are we seeing any flip-flops?
Yes,
Virtuals coming back and vice versa?
Yes, ma'am. We've pretty much maintained an open door to folks coming back or going away, but really especially coming back. We've done a lot of invitations to come back. Officer Riley and the principals have done home visits. We've probably made more home visits this year already than we do in a normal year all year, trying to convince those virtual students who aren't doing what they need to do that here is the place they need to be to do it. So yeah, we've seen a pretty steady stream back, but again, the high school is still at a solid 33% virtual. The other 2 buildings, their numbers have come down and continue to come down, but that high school number's remaining pretty solid.
So the other 2 buildings, their virtual numbers have come down?
Yes, ma'am.
But they still exceed, they're still well over 20%.
As
So
a,
we're
as a
coming
district,
down,
we're at
but
25. Yes, sir.
25% overall. So we're seeing some individuals return back to campus, but it's not at the magnitude that's going to give us the relief to not give consideration for this virtual Friday, this approach. I would call it an approach to potentially free up time. Another element that people may be wondering, I don't know where we landed out on the possibility of a band practice, but we're going to open the day with an athletic period, close the day with an athletic period, so it will be a it'll be a flex day for kids in grades roughly 7 through 12, where they may attend a portion of the day and not all of the day based on what their family and how they're doing in school. I think it's twofold. I would emphasize that if students are not doing well and seek additional support, we're here to support them in that regard. If students are doing well, either way, they're going to be conducting and doing work virtually, but if we have kids on campus, we are going to try to support those individual students who will be here on campus. We are running buses as another piece of this. We're serving lunch and breakfast, and tried to put that notice out last Friday, and then allow the community basically 2 weeks in preparation. So it will not occur this Friday, but it would occur the following Friday. So the community as a whole and the staff have basically 2 weeks notice prior to the implementation. And I might add that we did survey our staff, and the results of the staff survey, 70% of the overall staff, certified, non-certified, feel like the element of time is something that would benefit them, and they were, over 70% of the employees were in favor of trying to do something to at least look at freeing up some time to address some of the virtual needs. We are coming into the quarter, and we're going to take a hard look at progress across the board for virtual students, on-site students, and continue to monitor that as we go into the second quarter.
One of my concerns is that 50% at the high school of the senior class. Are those students doing their work, or we're having success, or they don't need these credits, or?
You know, mainly they're enrolled in the credits that they need to be enrolled in, and that's it. The students who would be working if they were here face-to-face are working. The students who wouldn't be working if they were here face-to-face pretty much aren't working. So it's pretty typical behavior, whether they're on-site or off-site. And so at least if they're here, we can push them a little harder. If they're at home and doing nothing, there's not a whole lot of pushing we can do other than try to push them back here.
But I think that's also some of the intentionality of the home visits with Mr. Baxley and Officer Riley is to go to some of those residents where you are indicating where he's alluding to that concern, and if they can at all possible, we're reviewing the safety procedures we have here on campus, you know, how many credits they may need, looking at their schedule, whether they could be with us a portion of a day or whether they need to be here a full day. But for some of those struggling students that we know that are probably going to fail if they don't do something different, we've tried to reach out to them. Any other questions on this topic? Mr. Campbell, anything, or any of the principals have anything you want to add? Okay.
All right, moving on down the agenda. Under item number C, we have the bid for the excavation and parking lot, or on the what we call the Wynn property. I provided a sheet of paper from B&F Engineering, and it is two-sided. I'm looking at that side at the very bottom right. It says C 2.0. So that's the sheet that I'm referring to. The only thing that I'm going to add is everything has stayed the same. I know most of you have already seen the plotter print that Dr. Murphy got a hold of and worked with our East Lab to print down there in the conference room in the administration building. Pretty much the only thing that has changed since then is our entry and exit way. We went for a DR1 plus permit. Originally got denied. Pretty much what a DR1 is a standard drive, what RDOT calls, and that's a 40-foot drive. We made the request for a 48-foot for us to give enough room to swing our buses in. That way we're not getting in the other lane as well on the oncoming traffic. So right now, with the help of help of the judge, we did get approval. We are still waiting for a statement back from RDOT. Our only other thing before we can go out for bid is a stormwater projection permit, and that's through ADEQ. We're hoping we can have that completed within the next week or 2 weeks, and then after that, we'll be ready for bid, and we're going out for bid on November 1st. So that's all I have regarding that. Again, you can take that sheet of paper home. This is the exact document that will be going out for bid. There will be cut and fill numbers that will be included to the bid document, but at least you can see the site layout. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions for Hayden on that?
The only thing I would comment for those that I took on a site visit on just the general clearing of the land behind the press box and just kind of a primitive road, I would call it that at this point. It's kind of cleared out. You can drive it, but in the alignment of that roadway that goes to the top of the hill, around behind where that storage container is located that we're now storing the track mats in, that kind of would give you an idea about where that road would come in at if you're trying to visualize what would happen there. The specification kind of brings it in at about that location behind that container. So that if you're up in that area looking at it and wanted to kind of get a visual of what that is, that's about where that road is spec'd to come around the corner.
I hope this mic's on. Do we have an approximate cost that we think this is going to go? Because we're going to talk about some other capital expenditures tonight.
So right now, we have not been out for bid, just a walkthrough with some previous employees from McHenry. We're estimating anywhere between $215 to $225 just for the dirt moving. We do have some grading that has to be done to take care of our stormwater drainage. That price will increase roughly anywhere between $85,000 and $100,000. So we're thinking around $300. It could be a little bit more. We'll know pretty soon. We're hoping to be as low as $225, but it just goes to depend on what the stormwater permit comes in at and what they really want us to go by.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is, we talked in last month's meeting, the intention was that we would have 4 solid bids for you, but because we could not get approval of the widening of the roadway, and this is probably a priority project in front of maybe another, we plan to have this project prepared for next month, but definitely would like the board's input on the number of projects you want to approve, time sensitivity of each project that we're going to have as motions tonight. So we want a good, thorough discussion on each of those prior to the approval. But that's a good point.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on to our new business. So, public comment. I'm sorry, excuse me. Does anybody have a comment? No comments?
Anyone sign up, Robin? Anyone sign up for public comment? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
New business.
now new,
Brian, it's all you.
now new business. You have a motion to approve the K1 canopy bid from Hot Springs Awning in the amount of $27,993.60.
So we've talked about this several times, right?
Yes, but we have, in all of our conversations, we've really had a variety of solutions, I would say. And so what we've come back with is a very cost-effective solution in which if you've been up at the bus garage, the attachment onto the front of the bus garage, a canopy very similar to that is what's going to go out onto from the face of the building, protruding a total of 12 feet. It will have supporting poles on the front of it. Hayden, I'm going to turn it over to you because I don't want to misspeak. You and I have discussed this, but I know you've been talking to them directly, so you can address the design. And it does end at Faison Drive. It does not go down Faison Drive. So Hayden, fill in the blanks if you would from there, please.
Yeah, Dr. Murphy pretty much covered all of it. Again, 90 by 12. This is the same length as has been proposed in the past, so the length did not change for the length of the awning. Now, we are coming out an additional 2 feet from what we proposed with Modus, or Mosier, I'm sorry, back several months ago. This is what they call just a patio cover. So like Dr. Murphy said, if you go up to the bus garage, the back supports are mounted to the building. We have direct LVLs that we can mount right to. So structurally we're good. There will be front post. We will be doing concrete bollards in front of them just for protection. Only other thing that I would add is on the structure as well, all aluminum, most likely never going to rust. It will be pitched down 3 inches from back to front, and that they'll take care of our water and our drains, no front gutter. All the water go through the post. At the very bottom of the post, you have about a 1-inch cutout. If you're familiar with walking between middle school and the triangle area, that newer awning that we did several years ago, it has integrated gutters to those posts. So very cost effective. We were looking at even ripping that asphalt out for that 12-foot area and doing a new sidewalk to clean everything up. Just because the price and everything else, we're just going to core drill that concrete. We're going to rent the machine ourselves, and we're just going to drill the holes and be done. Hot Springs Awning is going to take care of everything else. So I think that's just about it.
And if we accept this bid, when will we expect the work to begin and end?
He said he could do it during Thanksgiving or Christmas, kind of up to us.
Weather permitting, we'll kind of watch the weather forecast, keep them on point, get the materials ordered, get a partial payment with the intention of placing that either through the Thanksgiving or the Christmas window with an install.
And so you said this, you decided not to rip out the sidewalk, or you are?
We are not. The current sidewalk that we invested in 2 years ago is staying.
Okay. And does this, we're not going to, originally we were going to put up some kind of nice sign for the elementary building or whatever. What did we decide there?
So I brought out 2 companies just to give us an estimate on that. One of them just completed several Walgreens in Little Rock and really recommended, if we're not taking an awning structure down Faison Drive, not to do it just from the look that you'll see coming down. If you're coming from the 2-4 building towards K1, you're going to see that back side, and it's really not going to look the best unless we brought it all the way around. And again, we will be building this structure where we could tie onto it if we decided to go down Faison Drive at a later point. Right now, we're not. So right now, we were not doing a parapet wall. We're not going to be moving any of our lettering up top. If we do anything, once the structure's in place, We may bring the lettering down where it says elementary K1, building 6, and those letterings may get bigger. We'll kind of just evaluate that once we get the structure up.
And will this be, this will not be attached to the building?
This will be attached to the
Will
building,
be
just the
attached.
backside. So this is very lightweight aluminum. I mean, one post that's, say, 10 foot tall, weighs maybe 12 pounds, 15 pounds, pretty lightweight.
With
Okay.
this design, we were able to attach to the building because the weight was not the same as some of the prior designs where we had to
Okay.
build something freestanding. So that's what brought your price point down, is it was a structural design change where it's an attachment to the building with a supporting post. And
Right.
so that's, and it'll be functional, so that, as long as we create the functionality of, getting our kids off the buses and dry, that's what we're trying to do. And the other, what we gave up, if you remember, why is it so much cheaper? What we gave up in this design is we're not gonna be trying to pull a smaller school bus or anything, trying to get it partially under cover. Where the other awning, we had the discussion about the height. This definitely will allow all pedestrian traffic to be able to stay out of the rain, but then once they go from there, they'll step out into the street area to board buses if it is raining.
Only last thing I'll add, I did have Hot Springs Awning quote this identical to Moser, which they did before as well. I think Moser was at 82 when we came back for everything else there, several board meetings ago. Hot Springs Awning came out at 75,000, so pretty close there. So they did 2 bids. This one you're looking at tonight, and then one to mirror what we proposed before.
Sounds good. Any more questions? No? Okay. So the motion to approve the K1 canopy bid from Hot Springs Awning in the amount of $27,993.60. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Have a motion to approve the gym bleachers bid from SOPA in the amount of $105,702.
So this is the first time that we've actually seen a dollar amount attached to this, right?
Yes, well, I had the bids and everything there in the conference room, but yeah, we can kind of walk
Yeah.
through this, the bid itself. Hayden, you don't have any visual schematics attached, or do you only have the bid?
I have one piece of paper I can pass through to y'all.
Okay. I had those, I think maybe Cindy and Brian, and I think, Brian, you've seen them. You come over and looked at the layout. Cindy may not have seen the seating arrangement. What we're attempting to do is to remove the existing bleachers that they come in and out there behind the current scores table and the coaches area. We're looking at trying to increase the number of seats in terms of that section, and then also with this design, this is a custom build to have the appropriate elevation change to where you could walk into the upper mezzanine upon completion of this project. So your aisles will mirror the upper mezzanine area of the visitor side as a portion of this project. And if you look over there at at the piping that you see there, we'll have a welder come in and reshape and cut an egress point, and then those will slide in whenever we have the bleachers in during like a school day for a practice or something. But for game preparation, the bleachers would slide out. You could open that up, and so if you couldn't find seating walking up into the bleachers, you could continue to walk on up into the upper area to find a seat. There's only 3 or 4 rows, I think, in that upper mezzanine area, but it would allow that egress to flow all the way through the bleachers, and then you'd also be able to exit from up above. Currently, you have to exit from the upper area on either end of the gymnasium. So it's going to increase the functionality of that section of bleachers. The other thing that has occurred that they've tested is they've moved the scorers table over to the other side of the floor. And for social distancing, the layout that they put in, I think the scorers table along with the chairs will be over on what would be currently our home side of the floor. All of these chair-back bleachers would also have handrails tied within them, ADA accessibility, everything under current code in that regard. Hayden, can you speak specifically to the number of seats we currently have and the number of seats that would be available with the chair back?
So what we have now, they did 2 studies on this for us. So total egress for the, I'm just going to use the visitor side as what we still call it since those bleachers are not there yet. So I'm still referring to where these bleachers will go. So total with the new bleachers and the existing top section, we were good for 617 patrons. With this, with a new proposal, we'll also have 292 seats courtside, which will be included rows 1 through 6 with the new pullouts. Going down my list here. Only other things that I will add, this will be wall attached. We will be mounting this structure right to the concrete existing wall. We will have 5 sections, 4 aisles. Currently, we only have 3 ADA ramps where a wheelchair could park in front of the bleachers. We'll be going up to 6. Flip over here. On the rails, since this is electronic, that do go in and out, that sheet of paper that is getting passed down. If you see it, I think which went by Corey. I don't know if Cindy, if you still have it or not. But if you look, those rails that you see from the side profile, those rails actually fold down automatically. So we do not have to have any coaches going up to these rails to pull pins. These are all lock in place. So right when the seats start pulling back in, they automatically fold over. Moving on down this list, let's see. Dr. Murphy mentioned one thing about the top rails. The only 2 things in this proposal, I know we've been trying to include everything wrapped into one project. The only thing, 2 things that are separate, the gates that we will have to install, that the welder will have to do. We're looking at about $100 per gate. And the operation, if you look in there, it says that they will not install the electrical for this. We already have a conduit in place and electrical there, so that would be an expense for our local electrician to install for us. And again, if I just had to ballpark it, you know, we're looking at $250, $300. The wire's already there. We already have a 30 amp circuit. They need a minimum of 20, so we should be just fine. Just gotta change the plug out. Moving on down, we did decide to add what they call end curtains. That was an additional $2,000. End curtains, we're gonna put Fountain Lake School District and have the logo. If you wanna scroll on down, Robin. Keep on going. There you go. Oh, right there. So there is end curtains if you want to look up on the screen behind you, or if you have it pulled up in front of you. And the last thing I have on here is we have bid bond for $1,500. That is included in this price. And again, this is just we don't have to do it. What is recommended from the state facilities is anything over $100,000. They really promote having a performance bond just to ensure job completion. So that is included. And on the back page, Robbie, if you want to scroll on down, there you go. We have add $4,500 for removal, demo, and dispose of bleachers. That is added into the total price. And this is a Tips Taps vendor, so we did not have to go out for bid. This will be a Tips Taps purchase. Let me read it real quick. Add 4,500.
We
Right,
added
right.
each of those items
Yep.
to the 99 to get to the 105
Right.
in the motion.
Right.
Did you already confirm the power supply?
Yes, we are good on the power. Only thing we have to do is swap out the plug to a twist lock plug.
But the phase-in's the same as
Yes.
what it says on here?
Yes.
Is there anything else that you'd be concerned about in terms of clarity in this project? You know, I mentioned if we do the cutting of if we have the welders come out like they've done a couple of different projects for us, that is not included in this price, is that correct?
That is correct. Just the welding and just electrical.
Okay. So everything related to the bleachers, the installation of the bleachers, the design of the bleachers with the appropriate elevation, taking out, affixing the new in. And then the other question that I have that you and I have discussed in the past, have you been in communication with them? Because they sent us an email in September that said if we wanted these things to be put in mid-year, we'd have to get into manufacturing. Are we now at the conclusion of the year based on where we're at with this project, or could they still put them in manufacturing?
Well, I just spoke to Spencer before the board meeting, and he said it's going to be very close to make that decision. He said if we can get approval tonight, that date looks a lot different. They could probably pull something off a whole lot sooner, almost right in the middle of basketball season. If not, we can wait till after. So it's just, right now, manufacturing is very weird. He says, look, I cannot give you a straight answer, just because of COVID, manufacturing. Biggest thing is paint. These actually have a clear coat going over it. He said that's going to be their biggest delay. So it's really just hard to say on that.
So if we, what this would do is authorize the process of design, the build out, and then we cannot, at tonight's meeting, guarantee and secure an installation date on this bid, but definitely could be put in early May or upon the conclusion of the school year.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Motion to approve the gym bleachers bid from SOPA in the amount of $105,702. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve the track resurfacing bid from Hellas Construction in the amount of $180,850.
So I know on this we had gone back and forth of repurposing what was up there and then refurbish or starting all over. What this is to start fresh, right?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of conversations regarding the track, current condition of the track. The areas where there's a complete hole in the track, you can do an element of a kind of a pour in place to fix a hole. What we have on the surface of the track is a total delamination of the glue, and so all the black crumblies that you see around the edges of the track, when you begin to look at the surface of the track, this track is literally, the glue is breaking down, and so it's at a point of failure, and it is beyond repair. I did have them research, could we capture a structural spray over the top of the existing surface that we have and try to save the pad that's there, but in the evaluation of that, it was, it's deteriorated through time. I think it was an original install with no structural spray on it at the point in time of the install, so I think it was a part of when the field was done originally up there. So that kind of is a starting point for discussion. So there's not a lot that we can do to deal with the surface delaminating. If there's a true hole in the track, we can pour into that hole, but then it's going to separate. Looking at the track as a whole, and the areas, if you walk it and look at it, there's several different areas where it's just like the top portion of the track is just crumbling off. So somebody can help me on the age. It'd been at the same point, I'm sure, when the field was renovated up there. Would that be a 10 or before that?
Yeah, this is year 10.
2010 project?
That's correct. Yeah, yes, to answer your question, Mr. Little, yeah, after your 9 year, normally they recommend a 2 coats of a structural spray again. So, but we're
If you
past-
have an initial structural spray on
Yes,
it.
correct.
But the initial, the structural spray protects the integrity of the glue and the process of holding the track together.
Right. Once I start going through this bid here, well, we can answer some more questions first, but, what I have listed down here, this is a polyurethane track. So we do get a lot more lifespan. It's not oil-based. So they can't say it, but they're almost guaranteeing a 10-year track. And then after year 9 or year 10, you look at your structure, and then you do another top coat, and you get another 5 years. So this is going to be a much more of a long-lasting track from what we're going with. But any more questions before I dive into the bid?
Well, one thing I would add is the structural spray is typically in a resurface is in the neighborhood. I've done them for as little as 28,000 to 30,000 in the past, so I'm sure that number may have grown to 40 by now. But the structural spray will be much cheaper than the base coat with the structural spray. And the structural spray becomes the product that you manage to maintain the life expectancy of the track. So why don't you go through kind of, everything, then I've got maybe another comment or two at the end regarding some prior experience in working and trying to install tracks.
So what this bid entails is, first off, this is a rip and replace down to the asphalt. Underneath that current track, we have a base mat and then asphalt. So we would do a walkthrough with Hellas Construction and just monitor the asphalt. Right now, we've done several checks just from peeking from what we can do. If we lift up a corner, just to guess how it is, and just walking the track and just feeling it. And they think the asphalt is in great shape. And moving on down, we do have a 5-year warranty with them. So anything happens in the first 5 years, no question, they'll take care of us. I do have a 9 to 10 year lifespan, and we retop at year 9. That'd be a new structural spray. They have changed their sprays in the last 10 years, and again, I'm learning this as I go along here. So they, since we're swapping to polyurethane surface, they do have a structural spray that kind of just adheres to the base coat, seeps down, and that is your freeze layer, your summer expansion, and that coat expands with the weather. So you don't get any cracking like we have in the past. And then they'll come back with a secondary coat, which is strictly a UV base coat. And that's just protected from you from the weather and everything else. So pretty much like, you put wax in your car, rain hits it, it runs off. So that's that secondary coat. And I'll note again that this is not oil-based. In 2014, I believe, they no longer allow oil-based, just for the wildlife we have. Moving on down, I do have a deduction in price. Before we were, I believe, a little over 200. I think it was around 205, somewhere in there. And then now they did knock $8,000 off for our price. So you can see the new price that is reflected. Hellas is a $300,000 million company. They just did the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, the Raiders, the Dolphins, and so a pretty large company. If we agreed to do this tonight, their timeline looks like May. It takes them 14 to 15 days. And this also is a TIPS-TAPS provider.
Probably the only thing that I would add that we might be able to do in advance of this, once we make a decision, is pull out the original specifications from the boardroom and show them the underlayment. If I have any concerns with this bid solely is the application on a surface that's satisfactory. The subsurface will be the asphalt and the underlay therein, and so they're going to lay their track on our surface, and they're going to do some specification testing prior to saying go. And they will lay that track on any existing surface, but, do not be surprised if we have to come back to you and we're taking up and milling 2.5 inches of pavement and laying down new pavement around the track. I'm not saying that we would have to, but when I visit with superintendents at conferences and things and talk about track installs, that's one word of caution I always give the board upon entering into this type of an agreement. We can core drill it. That would be a good component. We don't see anything that would tell us that it's not in really good shape just because of the age, because of when it was installed. If we were dealing with a 20-plus-year-old surface, then we might be more concerned about the pavement than what we are, but just want everyone to be aware that what this is doing, it's allowing us to take up the existing surface all the way around, put down a new surface, and so this is the installation of the track, not any repairs to the pavement. And I just want everybody to understand that fully as we have this discussion here this evening. Because we really won't know what's underneath that surface until we take that surface completely up, kind of examine it. Sometimes I've seen them had conversations where they may seal it. You know, it's in pretty good shape, but they may want to seal it like we do a parking lot and then adhere to that. In other instances, it really depends on their recommendations, and they always try to work to be very cost effective to not just lay out new pavement. But that's something I wanted to bring to your attention because sometimes that can end up being part of the process.
Would they do that work if it was needed, or would we have to bring in somebody else to bid it?
Typically, what they will do is they'll have a third party that they work with that they are confident that will lay to their specifications, and so they'll mill it and lay it. And so, yes, we could put it out for open bid with that specification, but they'll definitely have 2 or 3 companies that they could bring in right along beside them and conduct that work with a recommendation, but we would pay them separately for that work. But
Any
Molly-
idea how much that would cost potentially? I mean, at all? How expensive could the project be altogether? I mean,
you know, we were out, I think it was roughly 20 to 25,000 to get a milling and a relay, and that was probably 2009. Been a little while.
My only reservation is, I mean, I know it needs to be replaced, but is the turf is gonna have to be, the actual field is gonna have to be replaced before too long. And having that expense, I mean, that's what did we talk about the other day, $400,000 expense?
Yeah, I would say a replacement on that would be at least 400,000 to replace turf. We haven't gotten a bid on it. What we are going to be doing is, upon the conclusion of the season, we're going to bring a third party in to actually test the compaction level of that turf and get a rating on the current field versus a perspective that it needs to be replaced within a time window. We want to see how it's actually performing.
So what do we do if it fails? And
So if it fails, then we'll be obligated to either replace it or, you know, the level of failure, there's a wide range of tolerance, and the higher the degree of tolerance of compaction increases the liability. There won't be an issue until there's significant injury.
So, being that this isn't a regulation track, what are we using this for? What actually gets used up there?
It gets used for a lot of activities. You know, I mean, there's people that go up there and walk every day on it that are taxpayers in the community. It is open to the public. Now, with that, if we had a new track, we'd probably want to have some more stringent signage. There is some signage that I saw initially on it. We have activities in the spring of the year where we have track practice in that regard. You can hold a meet, you just can't hold a district event on a 6-lane track, but you could hold home events if you chose to do so.
Have we ever held one?
I've not seen an event held here in that regard, no. Not since I've been here.
Only other thing that I would add is I just got off the phone with Hillis this afternoon, you know, kind of before our board meeting, just to refresh on everything and ask that same question, you know, if we ever did combine these together. And he said, you know, oddly enough, you would think wrapping a track and a field together would lower the price. And he said right now, since because of COVID, their numbers are down so low, he said we would still end up saving money, even if we did the track now and then the football field at a later date, just I mean, we're saving $8,000. I mean, that's $8,000, you know, we would be saving, you know, versus later on, but, it's the best deal they can give us right now.
Well, if he just did Jerry Jones, he can help us.
What'd you say?
That what the Cowboys was 3 years ago. They just finished the Raiders stadium, I think, in the last month.
That was my only reservations. I know it's deteriorated and it needs to be replaced, but then if the field fails in November or December, whenever you test it, there's another $400 or $400,000 expense
Right.
added on top of another
I just,
$180,000.
I'm gonna be very open. I don't feel that field is at a point of failure. And I don't know where you're getting the information that it's at a point of failure. I can, you know, it's not, what we're doing right now is we're combing it just like you're supposed to do, and in doing so, we bring and comb it, bring in a magnet, pull everything out of the field, kind of fluff it up, and we're not seeing the split ends and the turf itself. It still has link to it. When you pull it up like that, you're always going to have turf come up.
I'm involved with kids that play on it. It's hard as a rock. So that's
Okay.
where I come up with it.
Okay.
You can look at it and tell it's.
So have you played everywhere else, and everywhere else is spongy, and ours is hard as a rock?
No, but
So
I can
is
tell
that
you
the
that ours
perception?
I can tell you ours is not where it should be.
And that's why I want to have it tested, so we can compare versus assume, because I don't want it, if it is hard as a rock and it's not safe, you know, but, you know, I mean, I had a boy that just graduated, and he played all the fields in the conference, and he never told me ours was hard as a rock, and that was 2 years ago. So maybe it's gotten that much worse that quick, but I think it's very important with these types of expenditures that we take our time, we evaluate them. Ultimately, they may both need to be replaced.
No, they do. I mean, I'm saying the track needs to be replaced.
Right.
The field, if it has to be replaced, there's no option. We have to replace it.
Right. Right. Well, I think our next step with the track, if we're, you know, if it continues to delaminate, we could pay to have it removed and go back to asphalt. That's an option. But that's an option. You're asking for options. Now, what I
Questions?
would tell you is based on kind of where we were planning our capital improvement plan, if we put another $300,000 back into the building fund next year, you know, these strategies that we're doing right now will take our building fund down closer to $1 million. And we wanted to kind of keep it in that $1 million range. If we paid for a field turf replacement, we'd be roughly at $600,000 remaining in the building fund. Might be a little lower than what we would want to be, but we would still have ample funds available to take care of an emergency up to $1 million if we did all 4 of these projects currently. So I just want to make that as a point of clarity, because I think probably in your mind is you know each of these are needed, but the question is how much available money do we have? And currently we have $1.7 million available in the building fund this evening. And so we've roughly got 4 projects.
If we have to spend, I mean,
Right,
because the turf is non-negotiable.
right. Sure. Right. Right. If you include all of them. Yes. And the other thing I would tell you, For anyone listening for the first time, we've been replacing roofs. We've been looking at academic facilities first. We've made several of those steps in our capital improvement plan before we've had any of these related discussions, and so we feel pretty good about the current conditions of our roofs. We don't feel as though we have any significant, we have the middle school building where we've had an issue that we feel like we've gained a solution on. It's performing well based on the results there, but when we look at the 19 buildings that we have, we really have a pretty good solid footprint of facilities and have taken good care of them. So, you know, I want to make that statement because everything that we're talking about outside of an awning is related to athletics here for the last 10 minutes.
You done, Corey? I know. You heard it here first. All right, so the motion to approve the track resurfacing bid from Hellas Construction in the amount of $180,850. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to hire Michelle Harvey for the school-based health center coordinator for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year.
Okay, so you've had interviews, obviously, and interviewed some folks for this.
Yeah, we went through and reopened the position and conducted interviews utilizing an interview committee. I do have the results of that process. If you'd want to adjourn, have further clarity on that, would be more than willing to address that topic if there's any questions. If there is no questions, then the floor is yours.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn to executive session, look at all that.
Okay. So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and go to executive session, then we're going to come back and vote, and then we're going to adjourn our meeting. And then we do have some other business to conduct tonight, like the annual report to the public from the different schools. So we're going to go ahead and adjourn to executive.